Sabres have had a lot of trouble attracting veteran talent over the last couple of years. Well, they have some, but he's on an expiring contract. Is it time to talk about the Sabres giving a contract extension to Jason Zucker? We'll talk about it coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, and welcome in, and thanks for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are here on a game day, the Sabres and the Stars tonight. Sneaky Joe DiBiase coming to you on a Tuesday show before New Year's Eve game. The Sabres often do play on New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day. I mean, you obviously remember the Winter Classic. Big game coming up, couple of big games coming up because the Sabres have a very tough stretch in front of them. And if they can keep the momentum record-wise, result-wise in the last three games going into their next three games, then we're going to have something to talk about because that'll be very impressive given the caliber of opponent. Tonight, Dallas. We'll talk about that matchup much later on in today's show, so stay tuned for that. If you would like to check us out, whether that's on social media, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Sneaky Joe, on Twitter at Sneaky Joe Sports, the podcast accounts at Locked On Sabres. And then, of course, if you would like to hit us up on our text club, join subtext.com/Locked On Sabres is the place to sign up for that. Lot to get to on today's show. Talked with Lindy Ruff this morning on WGR. Be sure to check out that conversation if you missed it. Some pretty good stuff. I really got into it with Lindy a little bit on this speed metric that's out there about Zack Benson that's been shared and other players around the league of kind of the slower players in hockey. And we've talked about Benson and how he's small for the league right now, and he's also slow for the league, and that is absolutely true when looking at NHL Edge and their player metrics and who the slower players are. Benson is slow, but as Lindy kind of pointed out, it's not just about straight ahead speed. They get numbers on acceleration. Also, how quick are you? How good are you in your edge work when you are in a tight space? How are you in those situations? So there's more to it than just straight ahead speed with Benson. And also, you look at the list of players that are near the bottom in speed, like Jason Robertson, who the Sabres will see tonight in Dallas, is an amazing hockey player, and he's one of the slower players in the sport. Ryan O'Reilly is another one, and he's still not a great skater when it comes to the speed, and he's been great for a decade now. So you can do it. You can get away with it, and you just don't want a whole team of it, but the Sabres don't have a whole team of it. It's just kind of Benson, and he'll improve, I think, as he goes on. So we talked about that. Lindy had a really good answer on that. Talked about the state of the team as well. Not much else to get into. That's crazy interesting. Tonight's game, the only injury update really to update you on before we get to the matchup later is that Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson, who had maintenance days on Monday, are going to play. They were on for the morning skate, and not that there was any real guess that they wouldn't play. They are definitely in the lineup, and Luukkonen will be in goal. So I got a fun conversation, though, that I want to get to. Asked it to our text club, asked it on social media as well, because you're looking around the Sabres roster, and, I'm thinking, who do we really feel good about? Who do we like this year? Thompson, right? Tage Thompson is absolutely meeting expectation. I mean, he still is on a 47-goal pace. Or actually, he scored the other night, so that might be back up to 50. He's on a great pace for the season, and he has returned to the level goal-scoring-wise as a number one center. His assist totals are down. That might have more to do, though, with his line mates. Alex Tuch is dead last on the Sabres in goals scored below expectation. He has scored fewer goals given what's expected than anyone. And Jeff Skinner, who was scoring 35 goals on Thompson's left wing 2 years ago, has been replaced by a mix of J.J. Peterka, Zack Benson at times, and now Jason Zucker. And he is the next player that I really wanted to dive in on, though, because that's been a great signing. everybody feels good about Zucker. He, on that first line with Tage Thompson, I think has looked as good as Peterka did early in the year, as good as anybody has in that spot so far this season. Zucker is a smaller player. He's a veteran player. He's very fast. He's got a good finish. I think he's pretty creative when it comes to his passing ability. He's not that one-dimensional like he is. Like when you compare him to a Skinner, he's definitely giving you more in his own end, even if he's not, some defensive stalwart. Zucker has given the Sabres a lot this season. So I'm thinking about him today, and I'm thinking, I haven't heard it brought up anywhere, even asked to me, unless I missed somebody in our text club over the last couple of weeks and months. I don't remember anybody bringing up the possibility of the Sabres extending Jason Zucker. Let's get into that, because it's probably a good idea, right? That's not without its risk. He's an older player. Jason Zucker is currently in his age 33 season. He is 32 right now, but he will turn 33 on January 16th. So he will be 33 years old next month, and he has an expiring contract at the end of this season. My question would be to anybody, why not? Why wouldn't you want to do it? I mean, sure, there will be contract demands here that are worth taking into consideration. I'm not sure anything within reason would be a bad idea for the Buffalo Sabres with this player right now. So before we get to like what it would look like and kind of what the extension would sound like, how about Zucker this year? And he is the player that I'm going to be keyed in on for the Dallas game tonight, the Vegas game, the Colorado game. Not in that order, sorry. Colorado's in the middle. As somebody that is key on this trip, giving the minutes he's getting, the power play production. I argued on yesterday's show. I think the only way that this Sabres team is going to go on the run that they need to get back in the playoff race is, one, goaltending for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and two, they need their power play to get hot. And their number one player on the power play this season, by a lot, is Jason Zucker. Jason Zucker, let's go through the overall totals, and I want to split it up by strength and look at what he's been good at, what the numbers say about him, because there's not really been a bad word to say about him from any corner this season. Zucker, so far this year, 10 goals, 15 assists, 25 points in 37 games, playing 15-25 time on ice per night. He has already almost cleared the goal totals that he had last year. He had 14 goals last year in 69 games for Arizona and Nashville. This year, he is already up to 10. Zucker has been playing with better line mates, I would say, than he did last year with Arizona, where he was getting fewer minutes. Nashville, same thing, 13 minutes a night, playing in the bottom six. And this year, he did play in the bottom six also, but, it's the Sabres' third line was their second best line for the entire year so far with McLeod and Greenway. So you could almost kind of qualify it as top six. And now he's playing on the top line and also on the number one power play unit. So his pace on the year, what is 10 goals and 15 assists over 37 games? What does that equate to over an 82-game schedule? Jason Zucker is on pace right now for 22 goals and 55 points. Very strong. Well above what you would have expected from a 1-year, 33-year-old player that scored 14 goals last year. He's cleared the bar there. Some of his advanced numbers look pretty good. Expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5. Where does he stand? 48.4%. Not bad. You could do better, but not worried about it. When you split up his numbers by strength, that is where you start to get into the value that he is providing this year for the Sabres and why some needed power play production has been huge. The Sabres power play has stunk since the beginning of last season. They've been looking for that scoring threat that is opposite of Tage Thompson. They really have not found it when it comes to opposite wing, but they have found something in front of the net. And that was also something they've been searching for, because while Skinner would give you a moment here and there, but he wasn't a great power play net front guy, while Tuck would try it and wasn't bad at it. The Sabres in the last decade, or decade and couple years, have had two tremendous net front guys on the power play. Sam Reinhart, who is now crushing it for Florida. He does also come up into the slot too, but you know, the fluidity of Reinhart on the power play, net front and the slot is what makes him so good and so valuable. Thomas Vanek, of course, was incredible in front of the net as well. The Sabres have not had a guy like those two since Reinhart was traded. Zucker's giving them some pretty good production. Last game, he is sitting in front of the net. Is a Reinhart goal in Florida. This is the goal Reinhart scores the most, I feel like, is Zucker sitting in front, and as the puck comes down low on the wall, he slides up into the open space, almost like a slot receiver in football. He sits down in the open space, and he rips a one-timer home that was set up for him by Jack Quinn. That was his 5th power play goal of the year. That is number 1 on the Buffalo Sabres. When you look at the rate in which he scores goals on the power play, he is also number 1. Power play goals per 60 minutes of ice time. So for every 60 minutes that you're playing minutes on the power play, Jason Zucker is at 2.87 goals per 60 minutes of power play time. No other Sabre is above 2. He's at 2.87. No other Sabre is above 2. Dahlin at 1.93. Thompson at 1.91. Peterka at 1.88. He is their best power play player by rate, easily, when it comes to scoring goals. Now, that's been a lot of his production. It's half, right? It's half of his goal production this year, because 5-on-5, little bit of a different story. He is not scoring goals the same way when they're at even strength. In fact, he's number 1 on the power play for the team. He's number 10 on the team when they're at 5-on-5 for goal scoring. Goals per 60 minutes when you're at 5-on-5, Zucker 0.55. That is lower than Beck Malenstein. That is lower than Peyton Krebs, Jordan Greenway, Zack Benson, JJ Peterka, Alex Tuck, Dylan Cousins, Yuri Kulik, and Tage Thompson. It's in that order, by the way. Kulik, by the way, all the way up to number 2 now. Zucker 10th. So you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, he's not giving me much at 5-on-5. Remember, I mentioned that expected goals for number earlier, 48.4. Not bad at all. He is giving the Sabres value as a playmaker at 5-on-5. So he's the scorer on the power play. He's been the playmaker at 5-on-5. Primary assists per 60 minutes. So that when you're the first assist, you were the last pass before the goal was scored. And those, of course, are going to be more valuable and more telling of your ability than a secondary assist. Zucker, primary assists per 60 minutes on the Sabres at even strength this year, is number 1 on the team. 1.1. No one else is above 1. Second is Cousins, then Benson, then Peterka. Primary assists per 60 minutes, number 1 on the team. So he's the best goal scorer when you're on the power play. He's your best playmaker by those numbers when you're at even strength. So he's been giving you the results. He's been awesome for a 1-year, $5 million contract that was certainly debatable when they did it. I didn't care because they had so much cap space. Who cares if you paid extra a little bit? But Zucker has definitely exceeded expectations. So pay him. Pay him now. Would he want to stay? That's always a question to be asked. Let's get into that part of the question when we return, as we have established that he has been a very good player for them this year. That when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Sneaky Joe DiBiase. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happens. Couple subscriptions that you don't even know that you're still paying for. Rocket Money makes it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit for the year. And you got the new year coming up, 2025, Rocket Mortgage, over 5 million users. It helps save a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium functions. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions, reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Again, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Sabres and Stars on Tuesday night. If you are looking forward to that game on a New Year's Eve, well, hopefully it goes well. They're up against a very good hockey team. Talk more about the matchup a little bit later. We're talking Jason Zucker on today's show. I put a poll up at Locked On Sabres on Twitter asking, would you extend Jason Zucker for an additional, let's say, 2 years with a slight pay bump at $5.5 million per year? Yes is running away with it at 75.4% of the vote. I put that in our group chat, our text club. Everybody, I'm looking through right now. I don't think a single texter has responded saying that they do not like that idea. Now, I don't think it should be universal, but I would do it. I would defend it. And that was the number I just kind of came up with. 2 years, $5.5 million. Kind of makes sense, right? Like you're giving him, you're signing him. This is 2 additional years. So the rest of this year, and then his age 34 season and his age 35 season. You're signing him through the age of 35, and you're giving him a little bit of a pay bump, which I feel like would be about market, a little bit above market value. If he were to hit the market right now, $5.5 million, I might bet he'd get like a 1 year deal, 4.5, maybe 2. So why this is a good idea, why this might not happen, and why I would defend it. Let's start with why it's a good idea. Let's be real about the Sabres situation, as we try to be. The Sabres, very much so, struggle to get veteran players. They have had so much struggles with that in the last couple of years that the guy they have that fits that description, getting a good veteran player to come here, when you have one, you got to hold on to him for dear life, especially with the reports of the cap going up another $12 million roughly next season. If that number is the one that ends up being true, who believes the Sabres are going to spend that kind of money? I certainly don't. So to me, what am I going to spend the $5 million I'm not going to spend on Zucker for next year? Ideally, I'm going to look for just another Jason Zucker. So, and I don't know that the Sabres will have the ability to sign a guy like that. So, to me, it's about that. You got him in the building. I don't know what he thinks of it here. I don't know what he thinks of the group. You could do your best to judge on body language, right? And how he acts on the bench. And he looks like he's having a great time. Like he doesn't look like somebody that's pouting, doesn't look like somebody that's down in the dumps. He is, when he scores, like, again, like you're trying to read body language. You don't know how a guy's really feeling behind the scenes, but he looks happy whenever he scores. He's playing around with the trainers before games, having fun with them, right? Like, so it appears as though he's having a good time, but you can't know, right? You can't know unless, you can really hear these guys talk honestly, which they're not going to. So we'll see it in the actions, right? Because I can't imagine the Sabres aren't going to want to sign him. So then, to me, the ball is in Zucker's court. And if he likes it here enough and he wants to cash in and thinks, well, this team should be desperate for a guy like me, so I'm going to make them pay for it a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a lot. $5.5 million is a slight pay bump. 2-year deal through age 35. Maybe it's a 3-year deal. Maybe I'm not giving it enough, credit. The idea that he would want to move on and go try to win a Stanley Cup somewhere. I do not believe he has won a Stanley Cup, by the way. I know he was in Pittsburgh, but I think he got there after they won the cup. Pretty sure. Yeah, that's right. And then Minnesota obviously never won. So he doesn't have a cup. So that could be it. And, The thing about the Sabres right now is if you're on this team and you know what they're about now, you might think, what do I want to do? Do I want money and the best contract I could get? Because the Sabres probably give you that because you'd have the leverage. Or do you want to go try to win the cup? If you're Zucker, you could try one of the two things. To me, that's why this might not happen. And the longer the season goes on, while there's no rumors of an extension, I might want to believe that they don't think he'd sign, or he would rather this be a short-term arrangement. That he could have even had, I'm sure this conversation would have been had with agents or with Zucker and Kevin Adams or the Sabres brass before the year. Because I know what I would do if I were Jason Zucker. I know what I would do if I was Jason Zucker's agent. I would go tell the Sabres, like, okay, we'll take 1 year, $5 million. Yeah, it's beating maybe every other team's offer. We'll take that deal. But verbal agreement that if the season's not going well and the season's going off the rails, then we'd like to be traded to a contender at the deadline. And if I'm the Sabres, I'd say, okay, fine, right? The Sabres have to say things like that. They have to agree to things like that with teams. So, it's possible they have an understanding with each other that, hey, if this season doesn't go well, then we'll trade you. We'll move you to a team where you have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. So you could try to convince him otherwise. You could go to him now, December 31st, and say, hey, Jason, I know you want a chance at a cup, and I know the season's not going team-wise the way you would like, but if you would like more security with your contract, we'll give you 2 more years, and we'll give you $5.5-6 million to do it. That would be my approach if I were the Sabres. Again, I wouldn't feel like I could be picky. Any other team, I would understand, and I would expect if the Sabres did that deal, they would get criticized for it league-wide. And I know I would understand why. He's a 33-year-old player that has 10 goals in 37 games. It's not like he's on pace for 40 goals. He's having a good season. But I don't think the Sabres can be picky. I think when you got a guy like this, grab on and hold on for dear life. And I believe that's the way they should be treating the current situation with Jason Zucker. So very impressed by the player, though. And I hope that he stays. And again, the risk of it, just to address that, obviously you could sign him and it doesn't go well. The risk would be you sign Jason Zucker and then, oh, he's 34. You hit the wall. Well, that's kind of, not that stunning. Happens to guys all the time. Oh, he's 35. And he's like scoring 5 goals and he's getting paid $5.5 million. That's the risk. But I think you have to accept that risk if you're Kevin Adams. When we come back, Sabres and Stars, and beyond that, the next 3 games. What is fair to expect? What would you take from the next 3 games? With 3 great opponents, would you take 4 points? I feel like you have to. Talk about that when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. It is a game night, and the Sabres are on the road, and they've got a couple of tough games in front of them against the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Vegas Golden Knights as they are out west on tonight, Tuesday night, Thursday night, and then Saturday night. So, before we get to the specific matchup against the Stars, let's play the What Would You Take game. What would you take from this 3-game sample against 3 teams that are all super talented, that are all by far more talented than the Buffalo Sabres are, and standings-wise are all much better, obviously, than the Buffalo Sabres are, as Dallas is sitting at 21-13-1, which is the top wildcard team in the Western Conference. So it hasn't gone perfectly for them, but they're a very talented group, and they're a plus 23 goal differential. Like, I expect the results are going to start looking even better than they are now. Then you have Colorado. Colorado's gotten it together. They're on a 4-game win streak. They've won 8 of 10. They're now sitting in the 3rd spot in the Central Division at 22-15. Then it's Vegas. And Vegas is number 2 in the NHL. We know with Eichel leading the way and plenty of others, they are one of the most talented units in the league, if not the most talented. 25-8-3. They've won 9 of 10. The Golden Knights are on a 6-game win streak. That's the next 3 games. And the way the Sabres looked against St. Louis, where the shot attempts were 75-27 in favor of St. Louis, and that's a 500 team, I kind of expect the Sabres to get their doors blown off in these next 3 games. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that they prove me wrong, but that is absolutely within the range of outcomes, is they just get trounced night in and night out over the next 4 days. So what would I take? I think, though, because of where they are in the standings, like I could say 3 of 6. If they went 1-1-1, I would be impressed. I would be impressed by their ability against these 3 teams all on the road to go 1-1-1. I really would. But I also wouldn't sign up for that, because 1-1-1 against top teams is not going to get the Sabres back in the playoff race. Because of the hole they've dug, they have to beat great teams. They have to find ways to beat great teams, whether that's the goaltender carrying you through, whether it's blocking 50 shots and scoring 2 power play goals, whatever it is. They got to find a way to beat teams they shouldn't beat. So with that being said, I wouldn't take 3. I think I'd have to say I'd take 4, though, because 5 sounds like crazy land to me. They're not getting 5. At least I'd be stunned. I would take 4. I would take 4 because to me that is the best I could realistically see the Sabres doing. And it doesn't have to be 2 wins, right? Get a win against Dallas tonight, and then give me 2 overtime losses against Colorado and Vegas. I would sign up for that right now in a heartbeat, because I just don't think the Sabres are really capable of doing better on this 3-game trip. Tonight against the Dallas Stars, the Sabres are a hefty underdog. No surprise. The Stars are minus 215 over on FanDuel Sportsbook. The Sabres are plus 176 on the money line. The over-under 6.5 goals. The over plus 104. The under minus 128. Again, Dahlin and Thompson are going to be in the lineup for the Sabres. UPL is going to be in goal for the Sabres. So you got your 3 most important players, I would say, all in the lineup, which is good. And when it comes to Dallas, the Stars are going to be running with Casey DeSmith tonight. So the Sabres are getting a little bit of a break in that they are not going to be going up against Jake Ottinger, who is I would call him a superstar goaltender for sure. He's having a little bit of a down year and a half, I would say. 909 save percentage this year. His goal save above expected numbers are pretty good. He was dynamite his first 3 years, 5th in Vezina voting 2 seasons ago, all-star last year, but definitely a benefit that you're getting Casey DeSmith, who, by the way, on the year is roughly the same statistically as Ottinger. But recently, he had a game where he gave up 6 goals. He had a game where he gave up 4 goals. So I think that's somebody that you could get, Casey DeSmith. So with all that being said, let's get to my sneaky parlay for tonight's game between Buffalo and Dallas. And I am going to start things off. My first leg of the 3-leg parlay, I'm going to pick the Stars to win on the money line. I just think they're too talented. They are too deep as a unit. They are going to just hit the Sabres with line after line after line. They're going to have advantages on lines 1, 2, and 3, I would argue. So I'm going to go with Dallas in this game tonight on the money line on that minus 215. I am going to take Jason Robertson to record a point. Love Jason Robertson as a player. And I'm going to, it's a Zucker show, right? Let's go Jason Zucker to score a goal in this game at plus 360. So all that together at plus 1032, 10 to win 103, 100 to win 1032, and so on and so forth. That's tonight's matchup. Enjoy it. 8 o'clock puck drop, and we will. Thanks for everybody for listening to the show throughout 2024. We have been doing shows for you in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and 24. We have made it through, 5 New Years together. And I think I've said this every year. I do not believe this is going to be the case this time, but let's hope. They're going to need a run. Let's hope 2025 is the year that the playoff drought is finally broken. But I do appreciate everybody listening throughout another drought year, another calendar year that has come and gone without a Buffalo Sabres playoff game. Eventually, it is going to happen. I am not optimistic that it's coming soon. But, hey, when the Bills made the playoffs in 2017, did not see that coming at all. Would have never guessed that was the year that was going to happen. You're going to be surprised when it happens. Likely. You're going to be surprised. The time the Sabres break the drought, you're going to be surprised. Don't think it'll be 25, maybe 26. And maybe 25 too. Let's try to stay hopeful for now. All right. Enjoy Sabres and Stars, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy, by the way, USA Canada. 8 o'clock puck drop, by the way, correction. NHL Network got me with the 7:30 is when coverage starts or whatever. 8 o'clock for USA and Canada. So enjoy that as well. And we'll talk to you tomorrow here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.